What is the essential skill needed to create a simple and minimalist lifestyle? Stay tuned and I'll tell you all about it. I'm Dara. I help people live a more minimalist lifestyle so they can focus on what matters most without getting distracted along the way. If you're looking for a simpler life, stay tuned for more videos like this one. Let me get right to it. The essential skill that will lead you to a simpler life is, drumroll please, trade-offs. Consciously understanding and applying a trade-off mindset. If you're scratching your head right now, don't worry. In this video, I'm gonna walk you through what are trade-offs, why trade-offs are essential in a minimalist practice, and the supporting skills that will make trade-offs easier. So let's first consider the definition of trade-offs. A balance achieved between two desirable but incompatible features, a compromise. In other words, it's when you acknowledge that you want something, like something, enjoy something, but delete it or get rid of it in deference to something else. So that's a fairly clear one-to-one comparison, but sometimes our decisions are a bit more complex. Sometimes it's an entire group of items we're trading off for a single thing or a type of thing that we would prefer. For example, maybe a really big priority in your life right now is spending more time with family, spending more time on other hobbies, spending more time sleeping. Well, what is taking up all that extra time? Maybe for you, it's video games. So the trade-off for you is taking the video console, all the video games, getting rid of all of that to gain time. So that's a way in which sometimes it's not even an item versus an item or a group of items. It's actually something a little bit less tangible like time. So on a one-on-one basis, when we're organizing our homes, it's hard to see how just holding on to the backup printer or the third pair of sneakers, a bigger part of this trade-off decision-making process. Because what we're really saying is all of these little extra things that individually aren't a big deal are actually a much bigger deal together. And if we take that into account, maybe we get rid of all of those extra things that we really don't need. And then we've cleared up a lot of space that we can use for a more open and organized home. So you may have heard the old adage, don't miss the forest for the trees. That's what we're talking about here. And so while trade-offs are the actual decision points themselves, you can really consider this mindset change. You're looking at your life and the stuff that you have through this mindset that everything is a trade-off. This isn't about saying something's good or bad. It's looking at the whole and making these small to large trade-off decisions so that as a whole, you have the life that you want. So why are trade-offs essential in a minimalist practice? They're essential because they make our decisions better, more clear, and faster. And if you deal with decision fatigue, this will help you a lot. Trade-offs really are essential to this minimalist practice because so much about minimalism is making efficient and effective decisions without burning a lot of energy doing so. The beauty of trade-offs is that we get something great by giving up something less good. And that's pretty much what we want in our lives, only the best. Trade-offs also help us let go of these what ifs that I referenced earlier. Well, trade-offs really show us that unless it's something very important from an emergency or medical perspective, chances are the trade-off is not going to be in favor of keeping those what ifs. So a what if might be kept, but the value has to be a lot higher than we usually force ourselves to adhere to. You end up trading the least valuable things instead of the things that are most important to you, which sometimes happens if you're not going through this trade-off computation in your mind and in your practice. You really can lose sight of the things that you care about most because you're so inundated with a volume of lesser goods than what you need. To that point though, I have had a couple of clients who meet with me, and during that meeting, I'll sort of put something on the chopping block, like, okay, I don't think you need this third version of the X, Y, and Z. And I'll leave and I'll come back for the next session. And they'll say, Dara, Well, wouldn't you believe it? Since you were here last, I actually used that thing. Problem is, that's not proof that that thing should have been kept. Maybe it was a slightly better version for the particular project at hand. I'm thinking about a client who had a lot of different size bungee cords for different projects. So there is an optimal size for any project. But the truth is, he had a number of them. He could have used a different bungee cord or a different technical solution, and he would have achieved the same result he was looking for. It's just that the one we had put on the chopping block was the better one for that particular, very unusual, very rarely used sort of project. We can't get lost in these moments where we're like, oh, I actually did use it. Just because you use something doesn't mean that if you didn't have it, you would have been in deep trouble. You would have figured out another way to get something done. Aside from helping us not miss the forest for the trees, trade-offs prevent you from getting lost in the weeds. So what are the supporting skills that help you make these trade-off decisions? In general, having a keen eye for where you're making these trade-offs is really helpful, and then also continuing to improve your ability to make decisions and your just overall decision-making process. So this video in and of itself is a first step in that direction, because now you will be more aware of trade-off decisions. And maybe you can think back to how you've handled these types of trade-off decisions in the past. Some other skills and strategies include being mindful and intentional. Here at Less Equals More, we talk a lot about how mindfulness and minimalism are pretty much the same thing, with minimalism being the implementation arm of your mindfulness practice. Being honest. This, of course, also relates to being mindful, because you have to be really tapped into your experience and how you truly feel and think. You won't be able to make the best trade-off decisions for yourself unless you are very honest with yourself. Clarity on your greater goals and priorities. Without these, you do not have a picture of your forest. Understanding connections between things. Time, systems, your actual possessions, and your emotions all come together and have a connection. Becoming a better decision maker. Good trade-offs will lead to having less decisions to make, but you will also need to be willing to make hard decisions and not to overthink decisions. Creating an inventory of what you have and how you spend your time. This will allow you to take a step back and better see what your life actually contains. You can begin to see where some of the bigger trade-offs are already occurring, for better or worse. Using rule sets. These help you tackle a category of items with general clarity about what you'll keep and not keep. This also helps reduce the number of decisions you need to make. So while focusing on trade-offs while implementing minimalism is important, there are these adjacent skills that will help you move in the right direction. Trade-offs are rarely talked about, and yet we make trade-off decisions on a daily basis. By highlighting them in your life and using this mindset change to buoy your minimalist efforts, you will find that they are more effective and easier. For more information about minimalism and making your life easier, stay tuned for more videos like this one. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bells to be notified when a new video releases.